Alex Murdaugh, defiant in court, slammed by the judge, and now sentenced to life in prison for killing his wife Maggie and son Paul. The disgraced South Carolina attorney again denying that he committed the murders during his sentencing today, even though a jury unanimously found him guilty of both murders. The verdict came last night, less than 3 hours after the jury began deliberating. The trial lasting more than a month as jurors heard hours of powerful witness testimony, saw brand new evidence, visited the crime scene, and even heard from the convicted killer himself. On the stand, Murdaugh admitted to lying about his whereabouts on the day of those murders, confessed to dozens of financial crimes. He told the courtroom about his struggle with drug addiction, even describing how he asked a man to shoot him. But throughout the entire trial and even during sentencing, Murdaugh never gave in, standing by his story that he was a flawed man but would never kill his wife and son.
Judge, I tell you again, I respect this court, but I'm innocent. I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my wife, Maggie, and I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my son, Paul.
Well, and it might not have been you. It might have been the monster you become when you take 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 opioid pills. Maybe you become another person.
ABC News contributor and managing partner at the Cochran firm, Channa Lloyd, along with criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Bernarda Villalona, joining me now following this trial from start to finish. Bernarda, that judge laid into Murdaugh during today's sentencing, even lecturing him. Let's go back and take a listen.
Oh, what tangle web we weave. What did you mean by that?
It meant when I lied, I continue to lie.
And the question is, when will it end? When will it end? And it's ended already for the jury because they've concluded that you continued to lie and lied throughout your testimony.
Bernarda, it was so riveting to watch. There were times where I felt like he was even trying to tee up Murdaugh to confess.
Absolutely. So I was waiting for this sentencing because I have seen Judge Newman sentence other defendants for homicide before. So I knew what was coming and what to expect. Now, Judge Newman, as you can see how skillfully and artfully and with great poise that he addressed this sentencing of Alex Murdaugh and throwing a lot of statements that he made, because he definitely made a big point. He made a big point in the sense he was like, look, you come from such prominence. You know, there's no reason for you to have committed this murder. Like, I knew you. You've practiced before me. But aside from that, also made a point to say the Murdaugh dynasty, the legacy, the power, like the Murdaugh name controlled the criminal justice system for over a decade, and that he was surprised that the prosecution did not seek the death penalty, especially when at the hands of the Murdaugh solicitors, they have required and requested the death penalty for actions that are even less callous than the ones done by Alex Murdaugh by killing his wife and his son.
Channa, what did you think of that? Because at times I was thinking, wow, it's like listening to a father, a pastor, a therapist, a counselor, as he just sort of sat back in his chair and just kind of told Murdaugh what he thought of him and what a shame this all was.
I mean, Kira, let's think about the context, right? This is a very small town. The legal system itself in this small town is even smaller. These are people that saw each other on a regular basis. This is a judge who's known of this family's prominence, their role in the legal system. He understands what this did to the community, and he really reached out to Alex to sort of get that remorse, that closure, even an admission, because he recognized what it did to the community. He recognized what it did to this family. And he was searching for and giving Alex that opportunity before he announced his sentence to just even show some level of remorse, admit some level of what he did in this particular chain of events. And Alex did none of that. He just doubled down on his lies. He doubled down on what he thought was what he wanted to say to the judge, which was, I'm innocent. And this judge was giving him that moment to sort of redeem himself in some small manner, to kind of honor that legacy that they've had. And he chose not to do that.
And why do you think he chose not to do that, Bernarda? Why didn't he just take that opportunity and think to himself, well, I've been found guilty. All right, yep, I did it. I was high on drugs or whatever it was.
Because it's the Alex Murdaugh show. It is all about Alex Murdaugh. Remember what the prosecution said? Yes, he loved Paul. Yes, he loved Maggie. But guess who he loved even more than those two people? And that is Alex Murdaugh. So he wasn't going to apologize. He wasn't going to admit what he did. Because if he was willing to admit what he did, he would have done it on the stand, or he would have done it before there was a trial and pled guilty. But he wanted to preserve his right to an appeal. He wanted to make sure that there was no admission or anything that could be attributable as an admission during the time of sentencing, because of course anything you say at the time of sentencing could also be used against him in a sense if there were a future trial or at the time of appeal itself. So he wasn't going to say that. He wanted to still save face. And it's a possibility, like Judge Newman said, I'm sure you probably have convinced yourself of that. You probably convinced yourself that you didn't do it, you know, because it was the monster in you that actually killed these two people.
So Channa, our Eva Pilgrim, and Bernarda, you know this too, spoke exclusively with Alex Murdaugh's, with one of the jurors, rather, Craig Moyer. Let's just take a look at a little bit of that conversation and talk about it.
What did you think when Alex Murdaugh took the stand?
I didn't think much of him.
Really?
Really. I didn't see any true remorse or any compassion or anything.
Even though he cried a lot on the stand.
He never cried.
He never cried. What do you mean by that?
All he did was blow snot.
Did you not see tears?
No tears.
How did you know he wasn't crying?
Because I saw his eyes. I was this close to him.
Ooh, Channa, that's pretty powerful stuff. And that's amazing because there were pictures that went around and were viral describing what he just described, that those weren't real tears. He was kind of creating what looked like to be tears.
Absolutely. I mean, this juror hit the nail on the head. There was no remorse. There was no sort of contrition on his part. He just was not willing to show any of those emotions because, let's face it, he doesn't have them to show them, because otherwise he would have. This was his opportunity to show the jury and explain to the jury his point of view and how he could not have been the person. And they saw someone who sat there and didn't have any of that. They could not find the truth in his statement, and they were a mere 10 feet away from him. That says a lot about who Alex Murdaugh really is.
And just a short bit ago, attorneys echoed Murdaugh's claims of innocence. They held a press conference and they described how his loved ones are sticking by his side. Let's take a look at a bit of this press conference.
There was a lot of effort by the state to convince the family that Alec is the murderer. The family came to trial every day for 6 weeks, expecting to hear proof positive that he killed Maggie and Paul, something that they had not heard before. After 6 weeks of trial, they came away more convinced that he did not do this, and they steadfastly in his camp and support him, and that's where they stand.
So Bernarda, now Murdaugh's defense team, already saying they're going to file an appeal in 10 days. On what grounds?
So in 10 days, they'll file their notice of appeal before they actually have to submit the full brief for their appeal. So you have to think, Kira, that every time the defense objected, They objected and preserved the record for grounds for an appeal. So every objection you heard during the trial, and if it wasn't ruled in their favor, it's the defense saving their ground, preserving their ground for appeal. But one of the major issues that they're going to appeal is the admission of those financial crimes evidence, the admission of that shooting, that stage shooting evidence, because to them it was too prejudicial, had no relevance, didn't go to motive, and it also forced Alex Murdaugh to have to take the stand because those financial crimes were allowed in. Remember that the defense attorney made a record before Alex Murdaugh testified and said, look, because you allowed this evidence, it is forcing my hand in the sense that Alex Murdaugh had to testify. Not because they heard his voice in the video, but rather because it was the financial crimes. Another issue that came up is that during cross-examination of Alex Murdaugh, remember the prosecutor walked a tight line in the sense that he asked him, well, after you were arrested or after you never told anyone you were at the kennels. Remember that now once he's been arrested, he's entitled to his Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination. So he didn't have to come forward to law enforcement and let them know, yes, that was me on the kennel video.
All right, stay tuned. We'll be talking about that appeal within the next 10 days. Channa, Bernarda, thank you so much. And be sure to tune in tonight for a special 2020 on the Murdaugh family murders. That's at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central on ABC.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.